Hello, I am Camden Hainsworth, and this is Camden ADHD. I am so glad that you're joining us today. I have come upon yet another incredible, mind-blowing epiphany, if you will, about how my brain works and how to navigate this ADHD brain. And I'm going to be taking something I thought was a weakness and now turning it into a strength. Thanks for joining me. Hello, yes, I'm Camden. This is Camden ADHD. I am a 36-year-old mom of three, recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm including you on my journey of navigating what this means and what incredible insights and breakthroughs that we're going to make together as we figure out what it means to have a brain that's a little bit different. So, bottom line is, for years I have just thought I was ultra sensitive, very embarrassed. I went through like a long time with not being able to be separated from my mom. A lot of things that I was just really not proud of. I remember 5th grade was my very first time spending the night at someone's home. And it was a friend that I had known since we were like 4 years old. And yet I couldn't bring myself to actually be overnight somewhere without my mom. Once it actually happened, it was awesome. In fact, I'm just going to give a shout out to this mom. It turned, the clock struck midnight, and I was still getting kind of sad and crying. I was like 10 or 11 years old. It's pretty old. And she's like, Camden, it's midnight. Like, you've already spent the night. Don't worry about it. And something just like clicked in my brain, and I was like, I did it. Okay, cool. I don't have to worry about this unknown that's not there. But I would cry at my friends' houses, and I wanted to always go and spend the night, or I wouldn't go to a birthday party because I didn't want to be embarrassed about not being able to spend the night. It was like a thing, man. And then in school, whenever I got in trouble, I just cried. I was a very good student. I enjoyed being obedient. I enjoyed, I guess being a teacher's pet. And every time I disappointed my teacher or my parents, I just cried. And all the way up until like my sophomore year of of high school, I remember that happening. And I remember being obnoxious this one day. I was in my English class with Miss Moretti at Helix High School in San Diego. And I was sitting in the front. I had my 2 best friends right next to me. And for some reason, I could not stop goofing off. I was being silly. I was talking too much. And I totally get where my teacher was coming from, and all she said was, Camden. That's all she said. And I was just like, I knew I had done something wrong. I felt terrible. I was so embarrassed. I felt awful for disrupting her class, and I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And then another time in, I think that was my junior year. Yeah, my junior year in my history class. We had been working on a homework assignment together, and I had done the whole homework assignment, but there was a few questions that I didn't have answered, and so I was asking my friends right before class, which we were allowed to do, and I was getting down those last couple answers, and I just remember my teacher just kind of having it and taking the paper out from under my hand, and like I had done something wrong, or he was disappointed, or he didn't like what was happening, something like that. And I was just humiliated. Like I was blindsided, and this idea of being blindsided and then being maybe dishonest, even though I didn't know I was being dishonest, like the whole situation set me into complete shutdown, and I just cried. And we were taking a test that day, and I couldn't even read everything that I was reading on this paper on this test. Like, nothing was computing. I was honestly in complete shutdown. And he was an amazing teacher. She was an amazing teacher. They both were. But the sensitivity was just so obnoxious that I couldn't just like shake it off and move on. It like enveloped all of me, my heart, my mind, my spirit. Everything just felt damp, and I could not get myself out of it. The only thing that really would get me out of something like that momentarily would be like my athletics, playing soccer, anything like that where I was able to interact with people completely outside of the situation. But it really brought me down. And understanding the more that I have, I just opened up an app and it was my kids' game. I'm just getting into some of my notes here. But one of the only things that was something that I've been reading about is how quickly and easily a person with a brain with ADHD can shut down. They can be on cloud nine, and then one person will say something to them, and boom, it completely changes their mood. And I think that that's that sensitive part of us. Some people would call it emotional. Some people would call it unstable. And those are negative. Those are how do you say that word? Connotations to those kind of words. But I need to start to look at the positive side of this. That I feel very deeply about things. I feel very honestly and real about things. And that means that in my relationships, I'm very loyal. In my friendships and the people that I meet that come in and out of my life, they hold a very, very special part in my heart. And that is a definite strength. I look to one of our greatest leaders, which is Jesus Christ, and I think about how he interacted with the people. He wasn't there just to pass through. He was there to come to know the people. And I remember when Lazarus died that, he groaned within himself, right? He felt such sadness and sorrow. Even though he could bring him back to life, he took that time to grieve. And that shows me great empathy. And he didn't hold back those feelings of his heart, right? And he's probably grieving as well because his friends were sad. So there's a lot to this that we as a society might say, oh, don't mess with them. They are super emotional. But if we can harness that and we can use it to show our love for people and our trust for people and our care, that is a very positive thing. I'll tell you what, I feel like this world needs a lot more of that, a lot more kindness. In the community that I have as a health advocate, over this past year, I've gotten to know a whole variety of different people, and I've been amazed with how many of them, just upon knowing me for a couple weeks or months, and I don't say this to brag, we're just speaking to this topic, right, of ADHD and these empathy, sensitivity, attributes, but they've said, Camden, you are so good at connecting with people. And I've never heard somebody tell me that in those words, that I'm good at connecting with people. But to be honest, I think it's just that I'm good with relating, because that's what I enjoy doing. I really do not enjoy putting up walls or pedestals or whatever it might be. I enjoy understanding people and cultures and ideas and perspectives. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm pretty firm in my personal beliefs, my personal moral system, my compass. I have a pretty solid stance of where I stand for and what I'm going to teach in my family. But if you were to write a list of all of those attributes and then jumble them up with all the attributes of my closest friends that I've kept over the years, I think you would be absolutely surprised at how many contradictions there were. Difference does not alarm me. It does not threaten me. It allows a really interesting opportunity for me to get to know someone. And it's just really, really true throughout my life. To give you, I guess, an example, which one can we choose, right? There happens to be so many. But, among a whole group of people, whether they're conservative, whether they're liberal, whether they're left or right, whether they're atheist, whether they're believers in Christ, whether they have a different system of believing in Buddha or not, just a higher power in nature. My first inclination is to always find a common ground. And the common ground is not there to prove that I am right or that they are wrong. The common ground gives me space to embrace our humanity. And that is what I am learning through all this reading and research, is something that people with ADHD brains often do. And frankly, I think it's because we enjoy the stimulation. We enjoy the open files. They're always up. We're always looking for new ideas, new creativity. And as we come to new people and come to understand their culture and ideas, it puts our own thoughts on hyperdrive and gives us new things to stimulate our mind and thoughts with. I had a college professor when I was going through the education program for my multicultural class, and he said, instead of you need to step into someone else's shoes, he said you need to step into someone else's moccasins. Isn't that cool? I love that. When we say step into their shoes, we're assuming that they wear shoes. We need to step into truly what their scenario is in all of it and see where their perspective is coming from. And that's what our brains do. The last thing, empathy, sensitivity, and intuitive. So intuition comes with, in my opinion, with this brain that is just thinking of a million different scenarios. Sometimes making that decision is really hard with my brain, but a lot of the times I have been collecting data and circumstance and stories for a very long time and at a very high rate. So when some position comes up, it's like my heart and my mind have already gone through the scenarios, or they've already heard the stories, or they've already made the decisions. And so I have a very strong gut feeling about where something is going to take me for good or for bad. Now, following through with that is always a little bit difficult as well. But in general, generally speaking, that gut instinct is very clear. And that's something I can totally relate with. I also need to, give God the credit here. I do feel like the influence of the Spirit of God helps me in that decision-making process, more than anything. But when I'm thinking of gifts or intelligence or way that my processing works, going through my heart and my mind and making sure that they resonate and that they're on the same page, I know what that feels like. And, God gives us gifts, and sometimes the gift is in our biology. So it very well could be that it's my ADHD that has allowed decisions like that to happen. Now, not always, I'm not saying always, but this was, a couple articles I read that we are empathetic, we understand people, that we are sensitive to people and to our own situations, and that we have a good gut feeling, we have really good intuition. So I'm celebrating all three of those things today. I'm so glad that we could be together today and share a little bit more of this journey. It is quite the adventure. If you have experienced any bit of this or have any questions about it, please feel free to let me know. You can email me, or you can leave comments in this video down below or on this podcast. Camden_ADHD@gmail.com. I'd love to get to know you more, and just have a great day. Enjoy who you are. You are perfect and beautiful and exactly where you need to be.